Janelle looks at herself in the mirror and adjusts the hem of her yellow dress. She likes the color. It's bright, but not garish. Her blonde hair falls to her waist, and she brushes it back to see how the fabric fits her figure. She's going to an exhibition this evening. Her friend Monique was supposed to accompany her, but at the last minute, she said she couldn't. Janelle isn't upset. She likes being alone in places like this. No one bothers her with conversation, and she can admire the works in peace. She grabs a small bag, checks that it contains everything she needs, and leaves the apartment. It's warm outside. Janelle hails a car and gives the address. The driver glances briefly at her dress, but says nothing. She's used to such glances. People often notice her appearance. Her dark skin and long, light hair always attract attention wherever she goes. The car stops at the entrance to a large building. Janelle pays and gets out. A small line has already formed outside. She joins the back and waits. Soft music can be heard inside, and cool air wafts through the doors. Security checks invitations. Janelle shows hers and is allowed inside. The first thing she notices is a spacious room with high ceilings. The walls are hung with paintings. Small sculptures on low stands are placed between them. The light falls softly, without harsh shadows. People walk among the exhibits, holding glasses in their hands, talking quietly. Janelle takes a glass from a passing waiter's tray and begins to slowly move along the wall. She stops in front of one of the paintings and peers at the details. She feels someone watching her. It's not the usual gaze she catches on the street. This one is heavier, pressing down on her back. Janelle slowly turns her head and sees a man in a blue suit. He's standing against the opposite wall, leaning his shoulder against a column. He's also holding a glass, but he's not drinking. His long blonde hair is pulled back, revealing his face. His skin is very fair, almost white against the dark suit. He's looking straight at her, not even looking away when their eyes meet. Janelle doesn't know what to do. Usually she's the first to look away, but for some reason, she can't now. There's nothing brazen or oppressive in his gaze. He simply looks, and there's something calm, confident about it. She takes a sip and is the first to look away, returning to the painting. Her heart beats faster, though she doesn't understand why. A few minutes pass. She moves on to the next work, trying to concentrate, but she feels his gaze hasn't disappeared. It's still there. Then she hears footsteps. They approach, and she smells his cologne, fresh, but not overpowering. The man stops next to her, leaving enough space between them for her to feel at ease. He doesn't look at her, his attention now focused on the painting. Janelle notices that he's taller than her. Even in heels, she's just below his shoulder. His blue suit fits him perfectly. The fabric is expensive. It's obvious even in this lighting. "What do you think of this job?" His voice is low and even. Janelle turns to him. Up close, he looks even fairer. His hair almost silver in the light. His face is calm, emotionless. "She's interesting," Janelle replies. "There are a lot of details that you don't notice right away." He nods but says nothing. For a moment, they both stare at the painting in silence. Janelle notices people around them glancing at them, or rather, at him. She realizes he's no ordinary guest. There's something about his presence that makes others keep their distance. "Are you here alone?" he asks, still looking at the painting. "Yes." He nods again. Then he slowly turns to face her, his gaze returning to her face. He regards her with the same calm he had regarded the painting a moment ago. "My name is Taejun," he says. "Janelle." He extends his hand. She shakes it. His hand is cool, but his grip is firm. He doesn't hold her hand longer than necessary, and immediately releases it. "Do you understand art?" he asks. "Not professionally," Janelle replies. "I just like to watch." He nods again. Janelle notices that he barely speaks at all. But there's no awkwardness in this silence. He doesn't try to fill the pauses with empty phrases, doesn't ask unnecessary questions. They simply stand side by side and look at the paintings. Then, he suggests they walk around the room together. She agrees. They move slowly. Taejun comments on some of the works, but very briefly, in 2 or 3 words. Janelle realizes he truly understands what he's looking at. He doesn't praise or criticize loudly, simply pointing out details she might have missed. She listens to his voice and feels calm. It's a strange feeling, calmness around someone she's never met. As they walk around the room, he suggests dinner. Janelle looks at her watch. It's late, but she doesn't want to go home. She agrees. They exit the building. It's already dark outside. The streetlights are on. Taejun makes a quick call, and a minute later, a black car pulls up. Janelle notices a man in a formal suit driving. Taejin opens the door for her, and she climbs in. The interior is spacious, the leather seats soft. Taejin sits down next to the driver, telling him the name of the place. The car starts off smoothly, without any jerks. Janelle looks out the window. She already understands that this evening is not turning out as she planned. She thought she'd be alone, and now she's going to dinner with a stranger in a chauffeur-driven car. There's no fear inside. She looks at Taejin. He's sitting calmly, staring ahead. His profile is clear, his blonde hair glowing faintly in the streetlights outside. They arrive at a place Janelle doesn't recognize. It's no ordinary restaurant. The building looks like a private home, but inside, there's only a few tables. All of them are empty except one. Waiters in immaculate suits greet them at the entrance. Taejun says a few words in a language Janelle doesn't understand. She guesses it's Korean. They are escorted to a table. Taejun pulls out a chair for her and sits opposite. She notices that everything about the place is designed for silence and privacy. There is no loud music, no extra people, just them and the staff. They order. Janelle glances across the table at Taejun. Now, in the soft light, his face seems even calmer. He studies the menu, then looks up and meets her eyes. "Is something wrong?" he asks. "No," Janelle replies. "I just didn't expect this evening to end here." He lifts the corner of his mouth slightly. It's not exactly a smile, more of a subtle movement that softens his expression. "I didn't expect it either," he says. They fall silent again. Janelle realizes she doesn't have to talk to him. He doesn't demand chatter from her, doesn't try to impress her with words. He simply sits across from her, and that's enough. The food arrives. Everything looks beautiful. The portions are small, but Janelle isn't hungry enough to eat much. She tastes it, nods, and declares it delicious. Taejin watches her, and there's no tension in his gaze. Then he asks the question, "Do you always wear yellow?" Janelle looks at her dress. "Not always, but this is my favorite." "It suits you," he says as calmly as he spoke about the paintings. She senses it's not a compliment in the usual sense. He's simply stating a fact, as he might point out a detail in a painting. It's unusual, but pleasant. Dinner ends. Taejun pays the bill without showing his card, simply nodding to the waiter. They go outside. The car is already waiting. Taejun opens the door for her again. "Where should I take you?" he asks. Janelle gives the address. She gets in the car, and he sits next to her. They drive in silence. The city flashes past the window, the lights blending into streaks. Janelle feels tired, but it's a pleasant tiredness. She doesn't know if she'll see him again. He didn't ask for her number, didn't offer to meet. The car stops in front of her house. Taejun gets out and opens the door for her. She gets out of the car and adjusts her dress. They stand facing each other. "Thank you for the evening," says Janelle. "Thank you," he replies. She waits for him to say something else, but he just looks at her. Then he extends his hand. She shakes it. His hand is cool again. "Good night, Janelle," he says. "Good night." She turns and walks toward the entrance. At the door, she turns around. He's still standing in the same place, looking at her. The car is nearby. The driver is waiting. She waves, he nods. She goes inside. At home, Janelle takes off her shoes and sits on the couch. She's still wearing her yellow dress. She looks at the ceiling and thinks about tonight. He said he didn't expect a night like this. She didn't expect one either, but something tells her this isn't the end. In the morning, she wakes up to the sound of her phone. There's a message on the screen from an unknown number. She opens it. It's just one sentence. "I have a meeting tonight. If you'd like, join me for dinner afterward. I'll send a car." Janelle stares at the screen for a few minutes. She doesn't know who this person really is, but her fingers are already typing a reply. "Yes." An hour later, a text message arrives with an address. She looks it up on a map. It's a business district, with tall buildings and offices. She realizes he's more than just a businessman. People with drivers and closed restaurants usually have other things going on. But she decides not to ask. If he wants to tell her, he'll tell her himself. For now, she simply accepts the invitation. In the evening, she puts on a different dress, a dark blue one. She leaves her hair loose. A car is waiting for her downstairs. The driver opens the door, and she gets in. They drive downtown. The building they stop at is tall, with plate glass windows. The driver escorts her inside, tells the security guard her name, and she's let in without waiting in line. She takes the elevator up. The doors open, revealing a hallway lined with leather couches. The woman at the counter leads her to a waiting room. Janelle sits down and waits. About an hour passes. She's not nervous, just looking out the window at the city below. Then the doors open and Taejin comes out. Two men in suits follow him. They discuss something in Korean. Taejin says a short sentence, and the men leave. He turns to Janelle, and his face changes. The tension melts away. His gaze softens. "You've come," he says. It's not a question. "I promised." He comes closer. He's wearing a blue suit again, but a different one, lighter than yesterday. His hair is pulled back, revealing his face. "I'm hungry," he says. "Are you?" "Yes." He takes her arm and leads her to the elevator. Janelle notices the men in suits staring at them, but no one says anything. They go down and out onto the street. The car is already waiting. They go to a restaurant. This one is larger than the one yesterday. But Taejin is known here too. They are escorted to a private room. They sit across from each other, and that calm silence from yesterday falls between them again. Janelle understands that this is their language. They don't need to speak to feel comfortable. She looks at him and thinks about how last night she didn't know his name. Today, she's sitting across from him in a closed-off room at the restaurant, and she feels completely at ease. She doesn't know what he does, how old he is, or why men in suits follow him around. She doesn't ask. She's simply enjoying the evening. After dinner, he drives her home again. He gets out of the car at the entrance and walks her to the door. "I'm busy tomorrow," he says, "but I have a free evening the day after tomorrow." "I'm free too," Janelle replies. He nods. She enters the entrance and turns around. He is still standing there, watching her go. The next day, she doesn't leave the house. She thinks about him. She searches his name online, but finds little. Only mentions in business articles, no details. She realizes he's deliberately keeping his life in the shadows. 2 days later, he sends a message with the address. She gets ready and puts on a dress. A car is waiting for her downstairs. She gets in and drives off. When she arrives, Taejun is already waiting. He leaves the building, and Janelle notices that he's alone today. There are no men in suits, no security, just him. "No work today," he says, as if reading her mind. They walk. He leads her through streets she knows, but now they seem different. People stare at them, but Taejun pays no attention. He walks beside them, his steps calm and measured. He doesn't look around, as if he doesn't care who sees them. They enter a small restaurant with no private booths, just ordinary tables, ordinary people all around. Janelle looks at Taejun. He looks different today. He's wearing a blue suit, but no tie. The top button of his shirt is undone. His hair is untied, falling over his shoulders. He looks younger. They sit down at a table by the window. Janelle orders something simple, and so does he. They eat and look out onto the street. People pass by. Some peer inside, but no one approaches. "You don't ask what I do," he says when they finish eating. "You will tell me yourself when you think it's necessary," Janelle replies. He looks at her for a long time. Then he nods. "I'm in what others call a complex business," he says. "But for me, it's just a job." Janelle doesn't ask for details. She understands he's said exactly as much as he wanted, and that's enough. They leave the restaurant when it's already dark. Taejin suggests they go for a walk. They walk along the embankment, the wind ruffling her hair. He looks at her and says, "Yellow suits you, but you look beautiful in any color." Janelle smiles. For the first time in days, she smiles so easily. He walks her home. At the entrance, he takes her hand and holds it for a few seconds. "I want you to know," he says, "I don't date women. Until you." She looks into his eyes. There is no play in them. "Me too," she says. "I haven't met you. Until you." He nods. Then he leans down and touches his lips to her forehead. Lightly, almost weightlessly. "See you tomorrow," he says. "See you tomorrow," she replies. She walks into the building and hears a car drive away. At home, she sits down on the sofa and realizes her life has changed in 4 days. She doesn't know where this will lead, but she's not afraid. The next morning, the phone rings. Janelle looks at the screen. It's Monique. She answers. "Hi," Monique says. "What's wrong with you? You've disappeared?" "Nothing's happening," Janelle replies. "I can hear what's going on in your voice." Monique laughs. "Tell me, we're meeting today." Janelle thinks for a few seconds. "Okay, let's do it this evening." She hangs up and looks out the window. She's not ready to tell Monique about Taejun yet, but Monique always senses when something is up, and she won't let go until she knows everything. Janelle knows she'll have to tell him soon. She just hopes Monique will take it calmly. That evening, she puts on a yellow dress. She's meeting a friend today, But before that, Taejun sends a message. I'm busy tonight, but if you're free after 9, let me know. She doesn't reply. She wants to see Monique first. She leaves the house and goes to the cafe, where they usually meet. Monique is already seated at a table, ordering a coffee. When Janelle approaches, Monique looks up and immediately freezes. What's wrong with you? Monique asks. You're glowing. Janelle sits down opposite. It's nothing, she says. Don't lie to me. Monique leans forward. I've known you for 20 years. You've found someone. Janelle is silent. She knows she'll have to tell the truth, but she's not ready to say it out loud. Because once she does, it will all become real. And Monique will start asking questions she doesn't have answers to. He's just an acquaintance, Janelle finally says. Familiar? Monique doesn't believe it. You smell like something expensive, not the perfume you usually wear. Janelle looks at her friend. Monique's eyes sparkle with curiosity. And something else. Something Janelle can't quite place. Tell me, Monique demands. Who is he? Monique doesn't let up. She asks questions all evening. But Janelle answers briefly. She says she met a man at an exhibition, and that he's polite and attentive. She doesn't mention his name, doesn't talk about the chauffeured car, the closed restaurants, or the men in suits. She feels that if she says too much, Monique will press harder. And Janelle doesn't want to divide Taejun, even verbally. Monique purses her lips. She doesn't like it when her friend hides something. She's used to knowing everything. They've been friends since childhood, and they've always shared everything. But now Janelle is putting up a wall, and Monique can sense it. She decides to just wait. Sooner or later, Janelle will tell her herself. 2 weeks pass. Janelle and Taejun see each other almost every day. Sometimes it's dinners in private dining rooms, sometimes walks around the city, sometimes evenings at his apartment, where they simply sit on the couch and look at the lights outside the window. Janelle recognizes his silence. She understands that he doesn't say anything unnecessary, but every word carries weight. She grows accustomed to his calm, to his gaze, to the way he takes her hand as they walk down the street. One evening, Janelle receives a text from Monique. She writes that she's throwing a party to celebrate her promotion. She's rented a mansion outside the city. Janelle is surprised. Monique never mentioned a promotion, and renting a mansion is expensive, too expensive for her friend. Janelle knows how much Monique earns, and the numbers don't add up, but she decides not to think about it. Maybe Monique just wants to celebrate. Come with your mystery man, Monique writes. I finally want to see him. Janelle shows the message to Taejun. They're sitting on his apartment balcony, and the evening air is cool. He reads the message, and his expression doesn't change. Do you want to go? He asks. Monique is my friend, Janelle replies. If that's not a problem for you. Taejun is silent for a few seconds. Then he nods. Okay, I'll be there. Janelle senses he didn't agree because he wanted to go. He agreed because she asked. She texts Monique that they'll come. The evening of the party arrives quickly. Janelle puts on a long ivory dress and pulls her hair into a high ponytail. Taejun arrives to pick her up at the usual time. He's wearing a dark blue suit, his hair slicked back. He looks just like he did the day they first met. But now Janelle knows what's behind that appearance. She gets in the car and they drive out of town. The mansion turns out to be large, with columns at the entrance and a stone path. There are cars parked out front, lots of them. Janelle is surprised. She didn't know Monique had invited so many people. They get out of the car, and Taejun takes her hand. His palm is warm, calm. Inside, the mansion sparkles with lights. Flowers are everywhere. Tables are laden with snacks, and a bartender is mixing cocktails at the counter. People in expensive clothes are talking, laughing, and holding glasses. Janelle looks around and sees Monique in the center of the room. She's wearing a red dress that clings to her figure. She looks different than usual. Her hair is done up, her makeup is bright. She's smiling, but when she sees Taejun, her smile widens. Janelle! Monique approaches them. You're here! She hugs her friend, but her gaze immediately shifts to Taejun. She studies his suit, his face, his hair. Her eyes linger on his wrist, where his watch is visible. And this must be the mystery man, Monique says, extending her hand. I'm Monique, Janelle's friend. Taejun shakes her hand. Briefly, politely. Taejun. It's a beautiful name, Monique says, not removing her hand immediately. She holds his palm for a second longer than necessary. Are you Korean? Yes. Monique smiles. She looks at his suit, then at his watch, then at the suit again. Janelle sees her eyes working. She's counting, evaluating. You look great, Monique says. Janelle never told me anything about you. I didn't even know she'd met anyone. She doesn't like to talk much, Tajin answers. Monique laughs. Too loudly, too cheerfully. That's for sure. She's secretive. She takes them by the arms and leads them into the hall. Along the way, she introduces Taejun to her guests. She calls him Janelle's friend, but says it as if she brought him. Janelle notices how Monique clings to his arm, how she looks at him as she introduces him. She does it naturally, as if it were meant to be. Taejin remains polite. He nods and says hello, but doesn't engage in conversation. Janelle can see he's bored. He doesn't look at the people around him. His gaze glides around the room, occasionally stopping at the exits and windows. He's assessing the space, and Janelle realizes it's a habit. He always knows where the exit is, who's coming in, and who's leaving. Monique doesn't notice. She thinks he's listening to her. She talks about her promotion, her projects, the people gathered here. She names names, some of which Janelle has heard on the news. Monique hints that she knows these people personally, that they're her friends. Janelle looks at her friend and senses something is wrong. Monique never mentioned such connections. She worked for a regular company, held a mid-level position. Where did she get these connections? Taejun doesn't ask questions. He just stands there and listens. Sometimes he nods, sometimes he looks at Janelle. His gaze says, "Everything is fine." Janelle believes him. The evening drags on. Monique doesn't leave their side. She takes Taejun by the arm and leads him around the mansion. She tells him how long she spent looking for this place, how much effort she put into making everything look perfect. Janelle follows, feeling like she's becoming superfluous. Monique talks to Taejun as if Janelle isn't there. She laughs, leans closer, and straightens her hair. "You probably go to these kinds of parties often?" Monique asks. "Rarely," Taejun answers. "Then I'm glad that you came to me." She looks at him expectantly. Janelle knows that look. Monique uses it when she wants something. Taejun doesn't respond. He simply looks at her calmly, and for a second, Monique loses her confidence. But then she smiles again and leads them on. By midnight, Janelle is tired. She wants to go home. She catches Taejun's eye, and he understands without words. "We have to go," he says. Monique turns around. Her face changes for a second. She doesn't want them to go. Or rather, she doesn't want him to go. "So early?" She looks at Taejun. "You haven't even tried my signature cocktail." "Some other time," he replies. He takes Janelle's hand. Monique looks at their joined hands, and Janelle notices something sharp flicker in her eyes for a second. But Monique quickly regains her composure. "See you then," she says. She walks up to Taejun and hugs him. Not Janelle. Him. "It was very nice to meet you." Taejun doesn't hug back. He just stands there, and Monique pulls away first. She looks at him, and something new appears in her gaze. Something Janelle hasn't seen before. They leave the mansion. The fresh air stings her face. Janelle gets into the car and says nothing. Taejun gets in next to her and also says nothing. They drive in silence. Janelle looks out the window and replays the evening in her head. Monique was strange. She spoke too loudly, laughed too much, touched too much. Janelle doesn't want to think badly of her friend, but an unpleasant feeling grows inside. "Are you okay?" Taejun asks. "Yes," Janelle answers. "I'm just tired." He nods and asks no more questions. At home, Janelle goes to bed, but can't sleep. She thinks about the way Monique looked at Taejun, how she assessed his suit, his watch, his face, how she never let go of his hand. Janelle has known Monique since childhood. She knows Monique always wanted more than she had. She knows Monique envies her hair, her figure, her luck, but she never thought it could affect a man. The next morning, Monique texts her. She says the evening was wonderful, and that Taejun made a big impression on her. She asks when they'll see each other again. Janelle replies briefly, "Soon." She doesn't want to continue the conversation. A few days later, Taejun comes to Janelle's. They plan dinner at home. He brings the food, and they set the plates on the table. Janelle senses he wants to say something. He looks at her longer than usual, and there's something in his eyes she can't read. "What happened?" she asks. Taejun takes out his phone. He flips the screen open and hands it to her. Janelle takes the phone and looks. There's a text message on the screen. She sees the sender's name, Monique. She starts reading. The first message was 2 weeks ago, 3 days after the party. "Hi Taejun, this is Monique, Janelle's friend. I found your number in her phone. Hope you don't mind. Just wanted to say thanks for a wonderful evening." Janelle scrolls further. The second message, Sorry, this accidentally went the wrong way. But since I'm here, how was your day? Janelle sees that Tajan hasn't responded. The next message arrives the following day. A photo. It's of Monique at the gym, wearing tight clothes. The caption, "Oh, that's not for you. Sorry, I mixed up the contacts." Taejun doesn't respond again. Then another photo. Monique at a cafe, smiling at the camera. The caption, "Your favorite coffee shop, right? I remember you mentioned it at the party." Janelle rereads it several times. Taejun didn't mention the coffee shop at the party. He barely said anything at all. She scrolls further. The messages become more frequent. Each one is disguised as a mistake. "Sorry, wrong address again." "Oh, how awkward. I hope I'm not bothering you." Each message is accompanied by a photo. Monique in a new dress. Monique in front of an expensive car. Monique at a restaurant. In the last photo, she's standing outside the very same mansion where the party took place, wearing the same red dress. The caption, "Missed that evening. You were the most interesting guest." Taejun didn't respond to any of the messages. Janelle stares at the screen. A chill rises inside her. This isn't just a ploy to get to know him. This is a hunt. Monique pretends to be wrong, but every mistake is calculated. Every photo, every word, calculated to attract attention. Janelle remembers Monique hugging Taejun at the party, the way she looked at him, how she asked about him afterward. Janelle hadn't told Monique where Taejun lived, what he did, or where he went, but Monique found out. She found his number, found his coffee shop, found his schedule. Janelle puts her phone down. She looks at Taejun. His face is calm, but she sees coldness in his eyes. Not anger, coldness. "You knew," she says. "It's not a question." "I knew," he replies. "From the first message. Why didn't you tell me?" He is silent for a few seconds. "I wanted to see how far she would go." Janelle feels her insides tighten. She thinks of Monique, of how she pressed herself against his hand, of how she glanced at his watch, of how she rented a mansion she couldn't afford. It was all for him. The party, the guests, the red dress. None of it was for Janelle. It was a performance for Taejun. "Are you angry?" Taejun asks. Janelle thinks. She's not angry. She feels empty. The person she considered a friend is hunting her man. And she's doing it methodically, with a plan, with calculation. Janelle remembers how Monique asked for details of their relationship, how she complimented him, how she seemed so caring. It was all an act. "No," says Janelle. "I'm not angry. What do you want to do?" Janelle looks at him. She sees a question in his eyes. He's not asking what they'll do with Monique. He's asking if she's ready to act. Because he is. And when he's ready, it means he already has a plan in mind. "What are you suggesting?" Janelle asks. Taejun sits down across from her. He speaks calmly, as he does about everything. Without emotion, simply listing the facts. "She wants my attention. She wants to be closer to me. She thinks she can take your place." Janelle nods. "She knows it. We'll give her what she wants," says Taejun. "For now." Janelle looks at him. She understands that he is talking about a trap. How? She's already shown she's willing to spend money to impress. The mansion, the party. It was beyond her means. So she'll be willing to spend more, Janelle thinks. She remembers Monique bragging about her connections. How she mentioned names that meant nothing to Taejun, but sounded impressive to others. "She wants to be part of your world," Janelle says. "Yes," Taejun answers. "And we'll show her this world, but not the real one, the one she deserves." Janelle understands. He won't threaten Monique. He won't use force. He'll make sure Monique punishes herself, with her greed, her envy, her desire for what doesn't belong to her. "I agree," Janelle says. Taejun nods. He doesn't smile. He simply takes her hand and squeezes it. "We'll do this together," he says. The next day, Janelle texts Monique. She suggests meeting at a cafe. Monique agrees immediately. They meet at the same place where Janelle first told her about Taejun. Monique looks great. She's put on a new dress and gotten her nails done. Janelle notices that Monique has lost weight. She's lost those extra 5 kilos she always talked about. She didn't do it for herself. She did it for him. "How are you?" Monique asks, her voice too cheerful. "Okay," Janelle replies. "Taejun wants to invite you to dinner." Monique freezes. For a second, her expression loses control. Something quick and greedy flashes in her eyes, but she immediately regains control. "Really?" She smiles, as if it's a casual invitation. "Why?" "He says he enjoyed your party. He wants to thank you." Monique looks at Janelle. She's looking for a catch, but Janelle is calm. She's drinking coffee and smiling. She's playing her part. Of course, says Monique. I'd be delighted. When they say goodbye, Monique hugs Janelle, tighter than usual. Janelle feels her friend tremble. With excitement, Monique thinks she's winning. She thinks Tejun has noticed her, that the party worked, that the door is now open. Janelle returns home and writes Tejun one message. She agreed. The answer comes a minute later. I know. I'm already preparing an invitation. Janelle looks out the window. She thinks about Monique, about how long she'd been plotting this, how she'd pretended to be friends, prying for details, how she'd sent photos, pretending they were mistakes, how she'd spent money she didn't have to impress. Monique didn't just want Tejun. She wanted his life, his money, his connections, his world, but she didn't know who she was playing with. She saw Tejun as a handsome man in an expensive suit. She didn't see what Janelle saw, a calm that concealed control over everything around him, a silence that concealed knowledge of everything that was happening in his city, a politeness that could turn to ice in a second. Monique thought she was hunting. She didn't realize she had become the target. The following week, Tejun sends Monique an invitation. It's not just a dinner invitation. It's a heavyweight envelope, addressed personally to her. Inside is a card with the name of a restaurant that's closed to the general public. Below, a handwritten note. Looking forward to continuing our conversation. Taejun. Monique holds the envelope in her hands, her heart beating faster. She reads the phrase over and over again. Continue our conversation. She remembers that they barely spoke at the party. But in her mind, it becomes something more. She's sure he noticed her, that the party made an impression, that she's one step closer to taking Janelle's place. She writes back, with pleasure, see you later. She doesn't tell Janelle about the invitation. She thinks it's her secret, her chance. That evening, she gets ready. She puts on the most expensive dress she could buy. She spends an hour on her makeup. She looks at herself in the mirror and sees a woman about to enter a new life. She doesn't think about Janelle. She thinks about how Tejun needs to be with someone who can match his level, and she's sure that someone is her. The car arrives for her, black, with tinted windows. Monique gets in and smells leather and cleanliness. She looks at the driver in a formal suit and smiles. This is what she deserves. The restaurant turns out to be in a building she's never noticed before. There are only 3 tables inside. 2 are empty. Taejun is sitting at one. He's wearing a blue suit, his hair pulled back. He stands up as she enters and takes a step toward her. Monique, he says, thank you for coming. She extends her hand. He shakes it. This time he holds her hand longer than at the party. Monique feels a warmth spreading inside her. She sits down opposite him and straightens her dress. I was so looking forward to this meeting, she says. Taejun looks at her. His eyes are calm, but Monique feels like there's something new in them, something that says, you're here for a reason. She doesn't know that this evening will be different from what she expected, that her every word, every gesture has already been taken into account, that the man in front of her doesn't see her as a woman. He sees her as a problem to be solved. She takes a sip of water and smiles. She thinks the game has begun, but the game began long before she entered this room, and she doesn't set the rules of this game. Dinner goes exactly as Tejun planned. He says little, but every word makes Monique feel special. He asks about her work, her plans, what she wants to achieve. Monique tells him, and her voice carries a confidence she hadn't felt before. She talks about her ambitions, about how she deserves more. Tejun nods, pretending to listen with interest. At the end of the evening, he walks her to her car and tells her it was a pleasure. Monique drives away, feeling victorious. The next morning, Janelle comes to Tejun's office. They sit in his office, and he tells her about how dinner went. Janelle listens without emotion. She's already made her decision. Monique is no longer her friend. Now he's someone trying to take what's hers, and she's ready to act. What's the plan? Janelle asks. Taejun opens his laptop and shows her a list. It's a list of people whose opinions matter to Monique. Colleagues, acquaintances, people from the circle she's always wanted to be part of. Taejun has studied her circle for the past 2 weeks. He knows who her influencers are, whose approval she seeks, who she wants to appear successful to. We'll make it so she proves herself, says Taejun. She won't be able to resist. She'll need to show off. She'll need to show that she's on a new level now, and she'll do it in front of those who matter to her. Janelle looks at the list. She knows these names. Monique has been talking about them for years. People who, for Monique, were role models of success. What should I do? You have to act upset. Taejun says. We'll have a little fight in public, just enough for Monique to see and believe there's a rift between us. Janelle understands. Monique needs to believe that the spot next to Taejun is becoming available, that she can take it. When? Tomorrow. I'm inviting you to dinner at a place she often goes to. I know her schedule, she'll be there. Janelle nods. She doesn't ask how he found out Monique's schedule. She already knows Taejun will find out everything he needs. The next evening, Janelle wears that same yellow dress. She knows Monique remembers it. She knows Monique saw it the day she first met Taejun. Janelle wants Monique to see that dress now, when everything is falling apart. They arrive at the restaurant. Taejun has reserved a table in the center of the room, in plain sight. Janelle spots Monique 3 tables away. She's sitting with 2 women Janelle recognizes. They're Monique's colleagues, the very ones whose opinions matter to her. Monique hasn't seen them yet. She's deep in conversation. Taejun begins to play his part. He speaks louder than usual, his voice harsh. He asks questions Janelle can't answer. She feigns confusion. She looks away, falls silent, fiddling with the hem of her dress. People around her begin to notice. Monique notices too. She turns her head and sees them. Her eyes widen for a second, but then she composes herself. She watches as Taejun says something abrupt, as Janelle gets up from the table, picks up her bag, and leaves the restaurant. Taejun doesn't follow her. He remains alone at the table. Monique looks at him, and hope appears in her eyes. She returns to her conversation with her colleagues, but Janelle sees Monique glancing in Taejun's direction. She won't leave until he leaves. Janelle waits outside. 10 minutes later, Taejun comes out. He approaches her, his face calm again. She bought it, he says. She was already looking at me when you came out. I saw it, Janelle replies. He takes her hand and they walk to the car. The game is on. The next day, Monique sends Taejun a message. This time, she doesn't even pretend she was mistaken. She writes directly, I saw what happened at the restaurant. Are you okay? Taejun doesn't respond right away. He waits a few hours, then writes briefly, It was hard. It takes time. Monique takes this as an invitation. She begins to text him more often. First, once a day, then twice, then 3 times. She suggests meeting for coffee, for a chat. Taejun agrees to coffee. They meet in a quiet place, away from prying eyes. Monique arrives in her best dress. She sits across from Taejun and looks at him with sympathy that seems feigned. She says she always knew Janelle wasn't right for him, that she's too simple, too ordinary, that she has no ambition, no taste, no connections. Taejun listens without interrupting. He looks at Monique, and his next step is already forming in his mind. You're right, he says. I need someone who understands this world. Monique can barely contain her smile. She thinks he's talking about her. Over the next week, Taejun and Monique meet several times, always in places he chooses, always in public. He wants people to see them together, to spread rumors. Monique doesn't mind. She even helps. She tells her colleagues that she's made a new acquaintance, successful, influential. She doesn't name him, but she describes him in a way that leaves no doubt. Word gets back to the right people. People whose opinions matter to Monique begin to look at her differently. They call her, invite her to meetings, ask about her new friend. Monique relishes the attention. She feels like she's finally gotten what she's always wanted: respect, recognition, envy. 10 days after the argument at the restaurant, Taejun invites Monique to his office. She arrives, and he talks business with her for the first time. He tells her about the project he plans to launch, about the prospects, the profits, and that he's looking for partners. Monique listens, and the numbers he lists make her dizzy. This isn't the money she earns. This is a whole other level. I'm looking for people I can trust, says Taejun. I know you. You've proven that you're there for me when things are tough. Monique feels her heart begin to beat faster. He's asking her to become part of his business, not just to be his sidekick, to become a partner. How much do I need to invest? She asks. Taejun names a sum. It's a lot. It's all she has. And more. But she thinks about getting 10 times that. She thinks about how, if she refuses, someone else will take her place. She thinks about how Taejun isn't just offering her money. He's offering her the life she's always dreamed of. I'll think about it, she says, although she already knows the answer. 3 days later, she transfers the money. Everything she has. Savings, loans, even money she borrowed from friends. She does this with the feeling that she's finally done the right thing, that now everything will change. The next day, she arrives at the office Taejun indicated. It's a beautiful building in the center, with a sign on the facade. She takes the elevator up and enters the office. But it's empty. No desks, no computers, no people, just walls and windows. She calls Taejun. He doesn't answer. She calls again. Silence. She starts walking around the floor, looking into other offices. Everywhere is empty. She goes downstairs and asks the security guard. The guard looks at her and says the building is rented out by the day. The office she came to was rented for one day. Yesterday. Monique feels the ground shift beneath her. She goes outside and tries calling to June again. No answer. She sends a text. No answer. She goes to the restaurant where they met. They say there was no reservation into June's name. She goes to his office, the one he showed her. Security won't let her in. Her name isn't on the list. Monique gets into the car and cries. She doesn't understand what happened. She thought she won. She thought she beat Janelle. She thought her life would change. Instead, she lost everything. An hour later, she receives a message. Not from Taejun. From Janelle. Come to this address. We need to talk. Monique looks at the screen. She wants to avoid going, but she knows she has to. She has to understand what happened. She drives to the address indicated. It's a building she doesn't recognize. Inside is an empty hall. Large, with mirrors on the walls. Janelle stands in the middle. She's wearing a yellow dress. The same one she wore the day she first met Taejun. Why did you call me? Monique asks, her voice shaking. Janelle looks at her calmly. There's no anger in her eyes. Only disappointment. Look, Janelle says, nodding toward the screen hanging on the wall. The screen lights up. Monique sees herself. First, a photo from the party. Then, the messages she sent to Taejun. A photo at the gym. A photo at the coffee shop. A photo in a red dress. She sees her words, her smiles, her attempts. The shots follow one another. Monique watches and can't tear herself away. She sees how she looks from the outside, how she tries, how she humiliates herself, how she betrays. Stop, she says. Janelle nods, and the screen goes black. You thought I wouldn't find out, Janelle says. You thought he wouldn't tell. Monique is silent. She looks at her friend, and for the first time in a long time, she feels ashamed. I didn't mean to, Monique begins. Don't, Janelle interrupts. You wanted it. You wanted it from the very beginning, from the night you saw his watch. Monique looks down. She knows it's true. Your money will be returned to the account, Janelle says. Everything except what you spent on the mansion and the office rent. It was a lesson, not a confiscation. A lesson. Monique looks up. Lesson. You wanted to enter his world, Janelle says. You thought it was about money and connections, but it's not. In his world, trust is what matters most. And you've shown that you can't be trusted. Monique feels tears streaming down her cheeks. She hasn't cried in so long. What will happen now? She asks. You won't see him again, Janelle says. His people know your face. The neighborhoods where he works won't accept you. The restaurants you wanted to go to have your name crossed off the list. Monique covers her face with her hands. This isn't revenge, Janelle says. These are boundaries. You crossed them when you started hunting him. You crossed them when you decided you were my friend, but slept with the thought of how to replace me. Monique is silent. She knows Janelle is right. I forgive you, Janelle says, because we grew up together, because I remember who you used to be, but there's no friendship anymore. Monique looks up. She looks at Janelle and sees she's not joking. Her face is calm, but there's a wall in her eyes. The wall Monique built herself. You won't hate me? Monique asks. No, Janelle replies. Hate takes energy. I don't want to waste it on you. Monique wipes away her tears. She looks at her reflection in the mirror on the wall. She sees a woman who lost everything because of greed, because she couldn't be happy for her friend. I'm leaving, says Monique. Janelle nods. Monique turns and walks toward the exit. She stops at the door. You were a good friend, she says. I was the bad one. Janelle doesn't answer. Monique leaves and closes the door behind her. Janelle is left alone in the hall of mirrors. She looks at herself. Yellow dress, blonde hair, dark skin. She remembers that evening at the exhibition when it all began. She felt then that this evening would be special. She didn't know that it wouldn't just be meeting Taejun that would be special, but also what would follow. A month later, Janelle and Taejun go to the exhibition again. She wears a yellow dress. He wears a blue suit. They walk through the hall, and people turn around. Not because they're afraid, because they seem won. Janelle feels his hand on her back, a light touch that says, I'm here. She stops in front of a painting. the very one where they first met. Do you remember? She asks. I remember, Taejin replies. You were wearing this dress. You were wearing a blue suit. He smiles. A rare smile that she only sees when they are alone. I knew I'd come to you, he says. As soon as I saw you. Did you know? I knew. You were standing alone, looking at the painting, and I realized I didn't want to leave this exhibition without knowing your name. Janelle looks at him. Much has changed in this month. She's come to know his habits, his silences, his rare smiles. She's learned that behind his calm lies a man who sees more than he says, who protects those he cares about, who doesn't forgive betrayal, but knows how to be fair. You don't ask how I feel after all this, Janelle says. I see, Taejin replies. You're okay. How do you know? You wore a yellow dress. You wouldn't have worn it if you weren't okay. Janelle smiles. He's right. The yellow dress is her color of confidence, her color of power. When she wears it, she feels like she can do anything. They walk out of the building. It's warm outside. The evening is just beginning. Taejun takes her hand, and they walk. People are all around. The noise of the city, the lights of the storefronts. But for them, this moment is all there is. Do you regret? He asks. That you met me? Janelle stops. She looks at him and thinks about how much has happened in these past months. About Monique, about the betrayal, about the lies, about how she had to become stronger. No, she replies. Not for a second. He squeezes her hand. They walk on, and Janelle feels like her life is finally on the right track. Not because she's with a rich man, because she's with someone who sees her for who she is, someone who doesn't try to change her, someone who says little, but every word he says is true. They walk into a small cafe, where no one knows them. They sit at a table by the window. Janelle orders coffee. Taejin gets water. They sit and look out at the street. People pass by, some in a hurry, some strolling. An ordinary evening in the city. But for Janelle, it's unusual, because she's here, with him, and she feels calm. Will you ever tell me more about your work? She asks. He looks at her for a few seconds. Someday, he says. When the time is right. Janelle nods. She's not rushing. She knows that in his world, time is measured differently than everyone else's, and she's willing to wait. They finish their coffee and go outside. It's already dark, the streetlights are on. Taejun hails a car, and they go home. Not to his penthouse or her apartment. Home. The place where they are together. In the car, Janelle looks out the window and thinks about Monique. She knows she got her money back, minus what she spent on the mansion and rent. She knows Monique no longer tries to contact Taejun. She knows their friendship is over, and she's accepted it, not with anger, with sadness, but with acceptance. She recalls Monique's words in the Hall of Mirrors. You were a good friend. I was the bad one. Janelle forgave her, but forgiveness doesn't mean staying close. Sometimes forgiveness is about letting go. The car stops. Taejun gets out and opens the door for her. They walk to the elevator. In it, he takes her hand, and they stand in silence. When the doors open, Janelle sees the apartment that has become her home. The lights are dim, and dinner, prepared by the chef before they left, is on the table. Everything is ready. She takes off her shoes and goes to the table. Taejun sits down opposite her. They eat in silence, but there's no emptiness in this silence. It's filled with what they've experienced together, with what has made them stronger. After dinner, they step out onto the balcony. The city below sparkles with lights. Thousands of windows, thousands of lives. Janelle looks at them and thinks about how much can change in a few months. She left the house in a yellow dress for the exhibition, and that step changed everything. What are you thinking about? Taejin asks. About how it all began, she replies. About the exhibition. About how, if I hadn't worn this dress, we wouldn't have met. We would have met, he says confidently. Maybe in a different place, at a different time. But we would have met. Janelle looks at him. In the city light, his face seems softer. His hair glows. His blue suit blends with the night sky. Are you always this confident? She asks. When it comes to you, yes. He hugs her, and they stand on the balcony, looking out over the city. Janelle feels his warmth, his calm. She knows there's still much unknown ahead. His world is complex, requiring caution and strength, but she's ready. She's proven it. She remembers the first time she saw him from across the room, how he stared at her, unwaveringly, how he approached her and asked about the painting. She didn't know then that this moment would be the beginning of a new life. Now she knows. Taejun, she says. Yes, thank you for coming. He smiles. That rare smile she sees often now. Thank you for wearing the yellow dress. She laughs. Lightly, freely. The wind ruffles her hair, and she feels that everything is right, that every step, every trial, every loss has led her here, to this balcony, next to him. The city below lives its own life. Cars drive by, lights flash, people go about their business. But for Janelle and Tajan, this is all there is to it, and they know there will be thousands more. Together, she turns to him and rests her head on his shoulder. He hugs her tighter. They stand like this for a long time, until the city begins to quiet down. Let's go inside, he says. Come on a little longer, she asks. He doesn't argue. They stay on the balcony, and Janelle feels a calm growing within her. The calm she's been searching for her whole life, and which she found in the most unexpected place. A glance across the room, a blue suit, a yellow dress, and two people who have decided to be together, no matter what. Another 2 weeks pass. Janelle notices that her life has changed, not only because of Tajan, but also because of what happened with Monique. She no longer checks her phone for messages from her friend. She doesn't tell her about her plans. She doesn't wait for her opinion on anything. There's a void inside, but this void doesn't hurt. It's just there, and Janelle is learning to live with it. One morning, she receives a letter, a real letter in an envelope with no return address. She opens it and recognizes Monique's handwriting. She writes just a few lines. I'm leaving town, starting anew somewhere else. Thank you for not destroying me. You could have, but you didn't. I will remember. Monique. Janelle holds the letter in her hands and reads it 3 times. She doesn't cry. She simply sits on the couch and looks at the letters written in familiar handwriting. She remembers how, as children, they would exchange notes in class, how Monique would write her funny messages that would make them both laugh quietly at their desks. Now this is the last letter. Janelle folds it and puts it in a drawer. She will not answer it. Monique has said everything that needs to be said, and Janelle said everything at that meeting in the Hall of Mirrors. Tajan picks her up at lunchtime. They had agreed to go out of town, to a place he'd promised to show her a month ago. Janelle gets into the car, and he immediately notices that she's out of sorts. What happened? He asks. Janelle hands him the letter. He reads it quickly, then hands it back. How are you feeling? He asks. It's strange, Janelle replies. It's like a door has closed. Forever. Tajan doesn't offer any comfort. He doesn't say everything will be okay. He simply takes her hand and holds it the whole way. That's enough. Janelle looks out the window and feels the city leaving behind. The houses become lower, the trees more numerous, the air cleaner. They're going somewhere without unnecessary people, without reminders of what happened. The place turns out to be a small house by the lake. Janelle gets out of the car and sees the water, smooth as a mirror. There's no one around, just trees, sky, and them. Is this yours? She asks. Yes, Tajan answers. I come here when I need to think. They walk toward the water. Tajan takes off his jacket and leaves it on the grass. Janelle takes off her shoes and steps barefoot onto the soft ground. She walks up to the water, bends down, and touches it with her hand. The water is cool and clear. Do you want to talk about Monique? He asks, standing next to her. I don't know, Janelle replies. Sometimes I feel like I should have done something differently. Noticed it sooner. Stopped it. You couldn't, says Taejun. She made her own decision. Everyone makes their own choices. Janelle knows he's right. Monique chose this path herself. Ever since she saw his watch that night at the restaurant, she'd already made her decision. Janelle just didn't want to see it. Oh, are you mad at me? She asks. Because I forgave her? Taejun looks at the water. He is silent for a few seconds. No, he replies. You did the right thing. You showed that you can be strong without being cruel. That's rare. Janelle turns to face him. He stands there, his sleeves rolled up, his blonde hair falling over his shoulders, his face calm. She thinks about how many people fear him, how many find him cold and dangerous, but she sees something else. She sees a man who gave her the opportunity to decide for herself what to do with Monique, who didn't impose his will, who trusted her. Thank you, she says. For what? For not acting without me, for asking what I wanted to do. He nods. It's natural for him, but it means a lot to her. They sit down on the grass by the water. Janelle leans against his shoulder, and they look out at the lake. The sun is already beginning to set, the water changing color from blue to gold. What happens now? Janelle asks. In what sense? After everything. After Monique. What will change? Tajan thinks. He doesn't give quick answers, and she likes that. For us, nothing, he says. For you, everything. Now you know you can handle what you were afraid of. Janelle understands what he means. She's always been afraid of conflict. She's always tried to smooth things over, avoid tough conversations, pretend nothing's happening. With Monique, she did things differently. She faced the truth. She said what needed to be said, and let it go. You changed me, she says. No, he replies. You changed yourself. I was just there. They sit by the water until the sun sets. Then they return to the house. Inside, everything is ready. Dinner is on the table, and a fire is burning in the fireplace. Janelle sits on the sofa and watches the flames. Tejun brings 2 glasses and sits next to her. Do you miss her? He asks. The Monique that was before, Janelle replies. Before she started counting other people's money and trying on other people's lives. That Monique is in the past, he says. I know. She takes a sip and feels warmth spread through her body. She thinks about how today she received the last letter from the person she's known her entire life, and now that person is leaving. To start anew, Janelle hopes that Monique will succeed, that she will find her place without trying to take someone else's. In the evening, they walk out onto the porch. The stars are more visible here than in the city. The sky is dark, clear, dotted with points of light. Janelle lifts her head and looks up. When I was little, she says, I thought the stars were the souls of people who had passed away. My grandmother told me so. Do you think so now? Asks Taejun. Now I think they're just stars. But sometimes you want to believe in beautiful stories. He looks at her, and the starlight is reflected in his eyes. I also sometimes want to believe in beautiful stories, he says. Even you? Even me? Janelle smiles. She rarely sees him like this. Open, unguarded. In the city, he's always collected, always in control. Here, by the lake, he allows himself to be just a man, and she appreciates it. They return to the house, and Janelle notices a yellow dress lying on the bed in the bedroom. A new one. Not the one she wore at the exhibition, but the same color. Is that you? She asks. I noticed your favorite dress isn't new anymore, Taejun says. I wanted you to have another one. Janelle approaches the bed and runs her hand over the fabric. It's soft, flowing. She looks at him and feels a warmth well up inside. Not from the wine, from the fact that he remembers, that he notices such little things. Will you wear it tomorrow? He asks. I'll put it on, she answers. At night, they lie in the darkness, and Janelle listens to the silence. There are no sounds of the city, no cars, no voices. Only Taejun's breathing nearby and the occasional sounds of the night forest. She thinks about how much has changed in these months. She met a man who became everything to her. She lost a friend she'd known since childhood. She learned she was capable of more than she thought. Are you sleeping? Taejun whispers. No. What are you thinking about? That tomorrow I'll wear a yellow dress, and we'll go back to the city, and everything will continue. Are you afraid? A little, she admits, but not like before. He turns to her and takes her hand. I'm here, he says. I know. She closes her eyes and feels sleep coming, calm, deep, without disturbing dreams. In the morning, she wakes to sunlight streaming through the window. Taejun is not there. She gets up, puts on her robe, and goes into the kitchen. He is standing at the stove, preparing breakfast. His blonde hair is loose. His shirt is unbuttoned at the top. He looks completely different from his blue suit. He looks different, simpler, more familiar. Are you cooking? Janelle asks, surprised. I can, he replies. I just don't always have the time. She sits at the table and watches him flip eggs in the pan. It's such a normal action, but for her it's unusual, because she sees him in a new role. Not a boss, not a man everyone fears, just a man who makes breakfast for her. They're eating on the porch. The sun is already high. The lake sparkles. Janelle puts on a new yellow dress, and Taejun looks at her with approval. It suits you, he says. Thank you. She feels renewed, as if, along with the old dress, something heavy that she had been wearing for the past few weeks remained. They pack up and head back to the city. Along the way, Janelle looks out the window and notices how the landscape gradually changes. Forests give way to houses, houses to high-rises, silence to noise. The city greets them with its familiar bustle, cars, people, traffic lights. Taejun drops her off at her house. I have meetings until this evening, he says. Should I send a car? No need, Janelle replies. I can do it myself. I need to go for a walk. He nods. She gets out of the car and watches him drive away. Then she walks. She walks along streets she's known since childhood, past the cafe, where she and Monique drank coffee, past the store where they bought prom dresses, past the park where they used to walk in the evenings. She stops at the cafe where they last met, before everything fell apart. Behind the glass, there are different people, different conversations. Janelle looks at the empty table by the window, where Monique always sat. She doesn't go inside. She just stands and watches. Then she turns and moves on. She goes home, to her apartment, where she still keeps things that remind her of the past. She knows she'll put them away someday, but not today. Today, she's just passing by. At home, she sits down on the couch and opens her phone. She deletes the messages with Monique. Without reading them, without looking at them, she just presses a button, and all the messages disappear. She doesn't block the number. She simply deletes it from her phone, just like she deleted it from her life. Then she writes one message to Taejun. I'm ready. He answers after a minute. I know. I've always known. Janelle looks out the window. The city lives its own life. People rush about. Some are late, some are waiting. And she sits here, in her apartment, in her new yellow dress, and feels like she's finally arrived where she was meant to be. She doesn't know what tomorrow will bring. She doesn't know what the next month or year will bring, but she knows that she's stronger now, that she overcame what seemed impossible, that she let go of the person who was part of her life and didn't break, and she knows that Taejun will arrive that evening, in a blue suit, with blonde hair, with his calm gaze. They will sit down to dinner, and he will ask how her day was, and she will tell him about the walk, about the cafe, about how she deleted her messages. He will listen, as only he can, silently, without unnecessary words. Then they'll go out onto the balcony, and she'll look at the city, which now seems different to her, not alien, not dangerous, just a city where she's found her place, right next to him. Janelle gets up from the couch and goes to the mirror. The yellow dress fits perfectly. Her light hair falls over her shoulders. Her dark skin glows in the rays of the setting sun. She looks at herself and sees a different woman from the one who left home for the exhibition a few months ago. She sees someone who has lived through betrayal, pain, and loss, and remains herself. She smiles at her reflection. The first lights come on outside. The city is preparing for evening, and Janelle is preparing for a new chapter in her life, one where there is no room for lies or envy, one where there is only truth, and the man who accepted her for who she is, with everything she's been through, with everything she's chosen. The doorbell rings. Janelle knows it's not Taejun. He won't be arriving for another hour. She opens the door and sees a delivery man with a large bouquet of yellow flowers. She takes the bouquet and finds a note. For the next exhibition, Taejun. She inhales the scent of flowers and feels something new blossoming inside her. Not a flower, not hope, but confidence. The very confidence she's been searching for her whole life, and which has finally come to her.